Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Reasonably Effective Podcast. I'm 10 times as I was joined by Uncommon Fossil.
Look, very glad to be here today.
Yeah, and today we are talking about, once again, post-rotation, doing a tier list. We actually did this before, and honestly, looking at the last one we did, which was, I'd say, what was it, maybe a week, maybe two into the, I guess I should say, Nile Zero. So it's the Japanese expansion of Perfect Order.
Right.
It was like around a week or two when that was out, something like that.
Yeah, it wasn't out much, right? There are some city leagues that we had to go off of.
Yeah. So that was interesting. And looking at it, it's honestly shockingly different. There are some similarities, but there are some big differences, which we're going to kind of talk about here today. This isn't a comparison from then to now, but it is something we'll probably take a look at there. But anyways, this is a tier list, S through F here. We obviously are a podcast, which you can listen to on podcasting platforms, but we primarily on YouTube here. So we will be showing it as a tier list. We will be saying the tiers we put them in as well, though. And they are the standard S, A, B, C, D, F. And there might be some F tier decks. Probably not. No. There probably won't be. But
Yeah, I
there are
don't think
definitely
so.
some decks that are not amazing on this list. That are every deck on this list, though, is seeing a decent amount of play.
Yeah, they're all relevant decks, and there's a few relevant decks I imagine that we're not talking about too, which obviously let us know in the comments. But definitely we're not missing any of the major players though.
Yep. There could always be like a random tournament where some deck pops off and then it kind of people are like, oh, that's cool, and like start to play it a little. But
Yep.
I feel like I've got a pretty decent grasp on the metagame. I will also mention, I guess, even though you're more the Pokemon TCG Live person, that within the trainer trial format, it's currently was it the standard is pre-rotation, the trainer trial is post-rotation, with some weird stuff. Like you can't play judge in it because of the way the blocks work and stuff.
Okay.
And then
All right, so let me ask you this, because I know it's a post rotation thing, but I haven't tried it out. But so you don't have access to the cards, the post rotation cards, right? You don't have
no,
Meowth EX,
yeah,
for instance, which is huge.
yeah. And then there are
Okay.
definitely we're gonna kind of talk about some of the decks here and some of the replacement cards um for some of the cards rotating. We're talking about some new cards, but then yeah, definitely that's a big deal there. I haven't played either. I'm not gonna lie. I just looked at it. I
Okay.
wanted to check. It was for a video, where I was like talking about rotation in live actually, because there is, if you didn't know this, live has there's the what's it, professor for his study session or season or something.
Something like that. Yeah,
Um,
I don't know.
and they added one for rotation, which is cool. And honestly, it was pretty good, except that like glitched. But other than that, it was like it was quite useful. Um, but anyways, with that out of the way, this is we are talking obviously post rotation, so we are not having the G-Ray Laserman cards like Goldengo, Charizard, or sorry, I should say Goldengo EX, Charizard EX, or Gardevoir EX, alongside cards like Iono, Squawkabilly EX, and like Nestball. There's a bunch of powerful cards there. But the first
Oh
deck,
yeah, I mean, the rotation, two things. We're losing some very powerful cards. We're losing some powerful supporters, which is going to be an impact, I'll just say. And we are gaining, there's probably one main attacker, but but Meowth EX is also a very important card that will impact some decks. Just kind of just want to lay that down too.
yeah. But I guess one last thing, hopefully, before we actually dive into this, the current format in Japan at the time of recording this is not actually the format we are heading into immediately,
Right.
because they have another set out. So do keep that in mind. For example, that could matter for, say, Slowking. But anyways, hopping into things, we see that I think the first thing we want to talk about is probably Dragapult EX here, which I'm just going to say is S tier. Looking at tournaments, we have a bunch of City League tournament results, and it's like dominating them. It's been dominating tournaments before rotation. It's, I stand by the fact that it doesn't lose too much. The deck looks pretty different post rotation with a wide variety of different ways to play it. But, it's super good, right?
Oh, Dragapult's tremendous. I mean, it's probably just getting better with rotation, right? At
Yeah.
post rotation. So, and it's already been the best deck, and they've printed one nerf to the card. Actually, they printed multiple nerfs to this, right? Or counters, right?
Yeah,
Lulu's
I guess.
Clefairy, and the stadium, right? That
Oh, yeah, Battle
stops
Cage, yeah.
so in stuff. So yeah, and when they're doing that, you know it's a bit of a problem, and it's just still crazy good. So It's S tier. This is where the tier list for I'm going to say the tier list is a little weird, which I said before this, but I didn't get into anymore. I'm always tends to be conservative about S tier. S tier is only if there's something that's really above and beyond. I'm happy not to have anything S tier at a given moment. I think you like 10 types likes to have something in S tier most of the time. But there's no doubt that Dragapult is S tier. I will say, to me, I could actually make an argument that there's actually no A tier decks because the Dragapult to the next deck is a huge drop off. I think when we get to it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Or I don't know if I would. You can definitely see that. I'm not 100% sure where I stand on that. We'll, talk it out. And I obviously would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section. But it is very powerful. I guess when you said it like doesn't lose anything, it loses most notably Countercatcher and Iono. Obviously, every deck loses
Yeah.
those. Not every deck plays them, but a lot of decks do. And
Right.
so that is something worth noting, I guess. But I don't think it's a huge deal. A lot of people are playing Unfair Stamp. We'll mention that card here. That's like hand disruption. It's not the same as Iono. People are playing Judge, also not the same as Iono. But these cards like kind of fill the role. And then with Countercatcher, it's there with decks that are like slower. But then in a slower game, you could also play more supporters. So you could just like play boss. And gusting isn't, I wouldn't say the biggest thing for Dragapult because you're already doing some spread damage. Not that it isn't
Right.
good or powerful, but it's more so you can. I mean, Countercatch is an amazing card that we are losing. So yeah, I think it's all kind of fine there for Dragapult, and there's a handful of other minor losses, but they're very minimal in my opinion. The way that's, as I said, being played is very different, but it's like varying a lot. Obviously, I mentioned the card Unfair Stamp, which is the ace spec there. That means you're not
Yep.
playing Neo Upper Energy. So also you're obviously not playing Arvin because it's rotating, and so your supporter lineup's looking different. I think hurting the consistency of a lot of decks with that second supporter slot being kind of open. The second like main draw supporter slot because you got Liz Determination, and then you got something or nothing. I don't really know. You could have like T Marcus Petrol, which we see in like the list I'm looking at here, but for the most part, you're relying on Lilies more, but you have like Drake Lucas draw, and you have Badu to slow your opponent down as well, because while we are losing Nest Ball, we do have Pokepad, Ultra Ball, and Buddy Ray Poffin, which is for the most part what you need for most decks.
Yeah. No. It's Yeah, it's losing a little. It's not losing more than other decks. And Dragapult with the Dracloak has its own engine, so you still have that going on. So it's just really good, and you can play Badoo in it very effectively, right? Just kind of slow your opponent down. Still, you have Dusknor, which I assume you're usually going to play, although you have some optional builds. There are different ways. Obviously, we're losing the Charizard build because we're losing the good Charizard, but that's not wasn't the dominant Dragapult anyway. So there's still flexibility with Dragapult, and it just good deck. Just staying is a good deck.
Yep. And I made a lot of content on Dragapult on my YouTube channel, and I'm sure you've made some content on Dragapult as well. Probably not too much focus, like slowly post rotation there, but I mean, obviously it's super good, and potentially
Yeah.
a problem. So we'll see in a week or something. But then we have the next deck. Where do you want to go next here?
I mean, do you want to go to the deck that most people that's probably the second best deck, or do you want to save that?
I do. I'm not sure what deck it is. I think there's two decks that are potentially
All right.
there.
The deck I've heard most said is the next best deck is like Mega Lucario
Yeah.
EX, which is a very good deck. It can one shot a Dragapult EX and such. It can do that a couple times. I guess it could do it even 3 or 4 times if it gets Gravity Mountain in play to stick. But with the Premium Power Pro, you can certainly one shot one Dragapult. To have to one shot 3 Dragapults is a pretty tough ask. So that's why I think it's not as good. It's a simpler deck, I think, than Dragapult. So in terms of you're going to make less mistakes, I think, with Mega Lucario. You just kind of smack away with it. You have Lunatone Solrock, one of the best engines in the game. You have the Hariyama to get some extra gusting there. So and Fighting Dog Premium Power Pro, and then we also have a couple. I don't know how much are the new cards going in the list. The new trainers.
I don't think the new fighting stuff really is. There's a handful of good new fighting cards, but they don't quite have synergy with Mega Lucario EX to level you're looking for.
Okay.
There's a few. There's Special Energy, there's Barbaracle, and there's Tarragon, which I would all
Yep.
say are pretty good fighting cards. But I wouldn't expect to see them in this deck, really.
So you would agree it's potentially the second best deck.
Yeah.
It's right, and again, it's very powerful. Here's the big problem, though, and I would probably put this as A tier, except my concern is it's weak to Psychic, and therefore it gets hurt because Dragapult's so good, right? Lili's Clefairy makes Dragapult weak to Psychic. You got to respect Dragapult. If you're playing Lili's Clefairy, if your Mega Lucario is getting one shot, you just don't have a chance, right? So games, so you're going to get some pretty hard losses because of that. So that's where I'm concerned about Mega Lucario.
Yeah, no, that's definitely fair. With Liz Clefairy EX being super good, I think that Liz Clefairy EX is a little clunky, especially with the loss of Nest Ball. Not like horribly clunky, but I
Yeah.
don't think you're gonna get like Big Lucario one shot twice. I mean, if it gets one shot once, it's still pretty bad though.
Y-
And I guess you attack with like Hariyama in response or something. I don't really know, to be honest. It all kind of feels a little bad, but you do have the fact that it's kind of hard for decks to set up with the loss and Nest Ball there, and the fact that your deck is pretty consistent with a very good engine and a lot of good things. Also, if I sound a little under the weather, it's because I am, by the way. But yeah, it's like decently strong. I mean, as you're saying, like you're not really one-shotting Dragapult super easily all the time. There's Max Belt to get you there once though, but then you have your Premium Power Pro. It's a very good card, but it's not always going to be there when you need it. So no, it's got good stuff. I do think it is potentially the second best stack. Do you definitely think it's the second best stack, or not necessarily?
I'm not. I guess we'll have to see what you think the other candidate is. So, I think let's you bring up the other contender second, but are we going to place this on A tier?
I dropped an A for now. I think that's
Okay.
fine, but we'll talk about it after. But the other deck,
Okay.
this is a deck I'm actually not a huge fan of, but is doing very well, and that deck is doing decently well. That deck is Raging Bolt. Raging
Okay.
Bolt EX with obviously TMS Ogre EX there. Running Crispin and very focused on Crispin and not focused on Professor Saw's Vitality because it's rotating.
Right.
So that means that, this deck is losing draw. Someone's like, oh, I guess it's just a draw engine, Sada's compared to Crispin, which I guess could be true, but like having a draw engine, that's really good, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like that's a huge loss for the deck. This is the deck. This deck is currently in Japan, or like at the most recent time in Japan, pre Ninja Spinner, which is making up Chaos Rising, which is obviously not perfect order. Before that format, we saw in Japan that I believe Rageable surpassed Big Lucario EX in terms of plays. I'm personally not a huge fan of it. I guess I will also mention weakness. It is the same type as, I mean, it's Dragon, right? So, if
Right.
your opponent's running Liz Clefairy EX again, that could still be a problem for you.
Yeah. Yes. Right. Right. So it does get hurt by the Dragapult hate out there or counters. What Rageabolt has, it does have the big one shot potential, right? It is definitely harder without Professor Sada's Vitality, which I thought that it was, but it's doing well. So I think the loss of Sada's Vitality is not as big a loss as I anticipated it being. So, it's a very good deck for sure. I just it seems more questionable to me. I got to say, Mega Lucario is comparing it to that is it seems more straightforward what it wants to do. It seems like it's going to be. I'm going to have a tougher time with Raging Bolt. I got to say.
Yeah, yeah, the lists are running like knocked out, so you need to make sure you obviously sequencing, sorry, but then on top, yeah, on top, sorry about that. On top of that, you also need to make sure you have your Noctows in play at the right time as well and stuff.
Yeah.
Or
So
sorry, I mean the Hoots. Sorry about my voice there. But yeah.
right. I mean, yeah, you have. Yeah, it's a harder deck to play. But I guess back to my point. I think Mega Lucario is an easier deck. You have your Lunatone Soul Rock, and pretty much you're using Lunatone's ability every turn, right?
Yeah.
So you don't have to think so much. Look, and plays decks that allow skill expression are good, but I will say even really good players make mistakes, and the bigger the pressure, the more people make mistakes, and most players
Yeah.
aren't the top players. Most players, you make mistakes, at least a few mistakes every game, right? So the reduction of mistakes often does lead to more wins. So
Yeah.
doesn't make I don't know if it makes it a better deck per se, being simpler, but yeah. Look, the Noctowl engine though is crazy great, is crazy good too, right? That's the best engine card in the game when you have it. So, um,
Yeah, and some
but
Dragapult lists are running it as well. We didn't even mention
yeah,
that, but yeah, which is cool. I think that's actually I've played some Dragapult Noctowl in the past. It's really fun. It can go very bad, but it can go really well. Yeah. So where are your thoughts on it? Obviously you were saying it is more swingy than my Lucario, but it can do bigger damage and can do it on a
yeah.
basic, and that's really good, right?
Yeah, no, it is the a big basic deck, which is very good, very appealing. So if you want to put this above Mega Lucario, I'm fine. I think they're pretty close. I'm not sure which is better, and there might not even be a clear distinguished, a clear better deck. It may just be situational, which one performs better depending on the situation and just how people draw as well.
Yeah, no, I do think they are very close. I think the bigger question is, and you were talking about this earlier, is this deck, because this is a tier list, is it an A tier, or are these decks an A tier or B tier? Where I guess we need to kind of talk about the tiers. Obviously, S tier is like super good, kind of broken. A tier
Yeah,
is like pretty good. Like it's definitely a legitimately good deck.
yeah.
Not like broken, but like quite good, like very good. B tier is like good, right? Or like fine. Like it's like a decent,
Hmm.
like it's a whatever competitive deck. And the more I'm saying it, the more I'm leaning towards B tier. I don't know if
Okay.
you're agreeing with that, but
Well, here's the question. There's two ways. So first off, I think there's a really big gap between these decks and Dragapult, like I said. But then I also think these two decks might be a tier above the rest of the decks. In,
yeah, maybe.
in which case, are we comfortable pushing like most of these rest of the decks at C tier or lower?
I think I'm okay with that. I mean, yeah, Dragapult's so good. In some sense, if we had like an S plus tier,
Yeah.
um, Dragapult could go there. I could see this
Okay.
being at the high, or like Dragapult being at the high end of S, and Mega Lucario and Raging Bolt being at the low end of A, or at the top end of B. And I think, we want to kind of accent that gap there. So I'd probably space them out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that. So we have the distinction between Dragapult and Megalucara and Raging Bolt, and then the other decks. Some of like the C tier decks they're probably our B tier decks or low B tier, and we're gonna have some D tier decks that should be C tier decks, probably,
Yeah,
right?
maybe we'll
The
move
way
them
it's
up
gonna
though.
fall out.
We'll see. And
Yeah.
I guess I'll put Mega Lucario first. That's what I did.
Okay.
I guess I don't know. I think they're very close. But then we have I would just want to go in the order of plays based on how much they've been playing in Japan, or do you want to do something else? Actually,
Um.
this isn't 100% right now that I look at it because we like removed and add some stuff before this. But
Yeah. Go ahead. What are we hitting next? Because I'm not
yeah.
sure what you're looking at for number of
Um,
plays in Japan.
Yeah. No,
Honestly.
well, no, what I'm looking at is the tier list, which the order that they're in happens to be that order because that's the order that I resequenced them until I didn't. So, yeah,
Okay.
we got Team Rocket's Mewtwo or Team Rocket's Spite Ops. It's the deck. So I was looking at a tier list on Pokemon Book before this, and I showed my videos because it's I believe not there anymore. But anyway, so with that, Team Rocket's Mewtwo EX was the Pokemon representing the deck, but I have Team Rocket's Spite
Right.
Ops because that's what we had last time. But anyways, Team
Okay.
Rocket's Mewtwo is a deck, or Team Rockets is really what the deck is, though there's another Rockets deck. This deck is able to do some really powerful stuff with the Team Rockets package, obviously highlighted by the powerful trainer package. If you're not
Yeah.
familiar with that, you got a lot of search, a lot of power. We were talking about powerful supporters leaving the game. The Team Rockets package is, I'd say, about on par, if not a little better than the best supporters in the game pre-rotation. And then a good chunk of those rotated. So something like, say, Team
Yeah.
Rocket's Archer is really good as like an Iona replacement. And on top of that, also there's Team Rocket's Articuno, which this card is kind of huge. I guess I'll also mention Team Rocket's Mimikyu with that as a Dragon Ball counter. But Team Rocket's Articuno is a really amazing Dragon Ball counter. Also like
Yeah.
obliterates Alakazam. I think it's an auto loss for Alakazam for the most part. But anyways, you prevent
Mhm.
all effects of attacks used by your opponent's Pokemon done to your basic Team Rocket's Pokemon. And so this is really nice, stopping damage counters being placed on your bench Pokemon by Dragapult EX. Yes, it doesn't stop them being placed on
Like Spite
specifically,
Ops.
yeah, Spite Ops there, but it is still very good, I think.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, like you touched on, the Team Rocket supporters are they're a very good set of supporters now, and it's got the Team Rocket's transceiver. That's what makes it really good. This the I lets you the item that lets you search your deck for any Team Rocket supporter, and then with the loss of like Iono in post rotation, this set of supporters is just tremendous. So this package. So the Team Rockets decks, while obviously the Pokemon are getting better, the support package is getting better relative to everything else. Right, everything else is getting worse. So both the Team Rockets decks, I think, are taking a big step forward. Team Rocket's Mewtwo has been, or Spite Ops, however you want to call it, has been, I think, a little disappointing, but it's going to become more of a legitimate deck post rotation.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are really excited about it. I have like friends who are. I think Cool Trainer Pat is doing some of that stuff as well, and really into this deck, and just a lot of people like it's so fun. I mean, you love the
Yeah.
supporter package. I like it too. And I guess we'll talk about the other deck with the supporter package after this. I do think this deck is a lot better than the other one. We'll talk about that one though as in a second. But Team Rocket's White Ops is a decent card, and same thing with Team Rocket's Mewtwo. They're okay cards, but they're not crazy cards. But I think they're all right. I mean, Team Rocket's Mewtwo EX has some of the highest HP ever. Its damage is like decent. Team Rocket's Spite Ups has a good ability with a mediocre attack. So while it's not best of the best, it's still not bad at all.
No, it's a good deck, and yeah, post rotation gonna really is really kicking up, and the stadium is really great too. Team Rocket's factory. The stadiums are big, are important in the game now, so you're not going to get it to stick as much as at certain times in the past that you might have. But getting some extra cards every turn is just great too. So yeah, so I mean the Team Rockets Spite Ops slash Mewtwo, it's gonna go on C tier.
Yeah. We do need to talk about why it's like not good as well because we just like kind of
Okay.
hyped it up, right? Um,
Yeah.
so it's kind of inconsistent. Like in my opinion, you can kind of find yourself, or I don't know if inconsistent or just like is behind. I guess the inconsistent one more is going to be the Honchkrow deck, but with this deck here, you're going to find yourself. For example, with Team Rock's energy, struggling to find that. It's a special energy. You can't search it.
Yeah.
There's good draw, but it's not like you not search for that. And then you also need your like Spite Ops plus Mewtwo with like two energies, maybe energy switch to take big knockouts. Or if you're not doing that, you're just doing. I mean, there was Team Rocket's Mimikyu, which is good against Dragapult, but it doesn't like turn into an auto win. Your opponent could still return a three prize knockout with your Dragapult, so that's like not even you're trading negatively there. And then Team Rocket Spite Ups, as I said, it's just a mediocre attack, and a lot of times an attack you're going to be kind of lenient to. So ultimately, I'd say that yeah, I would agree that it is C tier.
Yeah. It's the attack it has that's the weakness to it, right? It's just you're just not going to be setting up all the time as much as you want. You're just not going to be doing the damage level you need to win consistently.
Yeah, but then I talked, and you talked about this, like the powerful package of supporters there, and obviously, I clicked on Team Rocket's Petrol. That's not the card I want to click on. There we go. So looking at Team Rocket's Honchkrow, this deck is, a deck that is interesting because it allows you to go ahead and do big damage on a single prize. Right? There are a few decks like this,
Yeah.
and it discards Team Rocket supporters. That being said, obviously you need them for damage, but you need them to like set up. And while they're good, you don't have like you're going kind of aggressive. This is like an all-in single prize deck, right? Kind of like
Yes.
Alakazam. Um, and so you can miss, and you can miss your special energy as well.
Yeah, I mean, you got Team Rocket's energy, you have Ignition energy, because you have the Porygon 2 as well to attack with the stage 1. You don't need the Porygon Z to attack as long as you have the Ignition energy there. So, yeah, it's whether this is the best single prize deck or not, I'm not certain. I kind of like Alakazam more, but we'll get to that in a bit. But it's very good. Single prize decks are appealing. It is a legitimate single prize deck, right? It's not a S tier, and it's not as good as the B tier decks, but it's right in there somewhere in the C tier though.
Yeah, I think it's, as I said, it can be inconsistent. Like it can fizzle out. Um, in a similar way too, if you played Festival Lead, I'd say it feels like that. I'd say Alakazam doesn't really fizzle out as much, which yeah, I do think Alakazam's probably a little better as well. I guess I will also mention the Doublade deck. I think the Doublade is actually pretty interesting as well. I haven't really heard much talk about it. The big issue there is that you can only run 4 Ignition Energies, which is also true for this deck, but you can also run
Yeah.
4 T-Rockets energy. So,
Yeah.
uh, there you're going to end up with a lot of choice of my energies. So having 4 energies is really not good. Having 8 is like okay. You will definitely miss at times, but it's you can draw a bunch of cards. So definitely a C tier deck. Definitely below, in my opinion, the Team Rockets, like the Team Rocket deck, or the one with Spite Ops and Mewtwo, right?
Maybe. I think it's. I think it just depends.
Yeah. I mean, you were talking about
If
Psychic being super good, and the one deck Psychic.
yes, that is true. The different with the Mewtwo deck, it just depends. If you're going to miss occasionally with each deck, and it hurts you less to miss occasionally with a single prize deck with a multi-prize deck, right? That's
Um,
the one advantage to Honchkrow.
Theoretically, but then then you can start getting like kind of run over. You kind of commit resources, and then I don't know. I've just seen things. I guess I haven't seen the Team Rockets deck in action that much. I've generally heard better things about it. Versus Team Rockets Honchkrow, I've seen it go wrong a lot of times. I've seen it like
Okay.
go very close to right, but just like a little short. And if you're short, then you're like not there. Though I guess when I played against Iono, or with it, I played with Iono there. So
Hmm.
then an Iono against like a really big hand with Team Rocket's Honchkrow is really good. But if with an informant without Iono, you could just like not attack there. So yeah, I don't know. I think the deck is if you wanted a, I don't know. I feel like I do
No,
think
let's put the Mewtwo deck above the Honchkrow deck. I'm fine with that.
yeah, you just think they're closer, and I do see that. I do see that.
Yeah.
You want to talk Alakazam now?
Yeah. The other of the main single prize deck. There's one other one too, but that's definitely the
There are two
weaker one.
others actually.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. But Alakazam, which I think is probably the best of the single prize decks. It's got its own draw engine with the Alakazam and the Kadabra. It plays. You run the Dunsparce engine. So we lose Iono, which is good for the deck because obviously when you're up and you're down to like one or two prizes left and you get Iono'd, then all of a sudden you might just be in a bad situation. Although you can still avoid that even now, is if you don't have to use all your Dunsparces. If you have the Dunsparces sitting there because it's not a non-playability, that then you can get around that. So it's a good deck. Obviously, single prize stage 2 is a bit dicey for sure, and then you have like the Abra that can get one shot on the bench by the Dragapult. So that's a scary thing. But it is. I will say. The deck's a lot of fun, and I probably overrate it because of that. It's a lot of fun when you get the Alakazam and you're just one-shotting a Dragapult or whatever, right? But
Yeah.
but you don't do it as I probably doesn't happen as often as I think. It feels like it happens more often because it's just very memorable.
Yeah, and I think that's how a lot of people think about the deck. I've gotten like so many YouTube comments, especially when the deck came out, which unsurprisingly, when the deck comes out for the first time, it's gonna be overhyped. But
Yeah.
so many comments. They're like any card gets like released. They're like, wow, this is like terrible for Dragapult, or no, what? Not Dragapult. Everything's good for Dragapult. Terrible for Alakazam. Which, by the way, Dragapult is like super bad for Alakazam. The deck's like hard countering it. Um, You're generally trying to hard counter it, and it like doesn't work. It kind of works, but it's not great. And with Battle Cage primarily because like I see this list here, it's running Shaman. Shaman's not doing it. Um, but it's not stopping Dragapult, and
Right.
Dragapult can still attack. Though you should be in a pretty good position. I will say that it is, there's unfair stamp to disrupt them once. I guess there's a judge or something similar to disrupt them a second time because even like a Lucian, which is each player shuffles, might be on the bottom. I don't really remember, but it shuffle draw 3 or 6. It's random for both players. Even if they
Okay.
shuffle draw 6, that's still going to be reducing their hand size by a lot, presumably. So it doesn't matter too much there. But ultimately, what I'm getting at is the loss of Iono is good for the deck, but maybe it is really good for the deck. I'm not sure. I feel like the deck is still just feels like kind of honestly kind of greedy. I'm not gonna lie. Like I'm looking here and I'm looking at this list, which plays Enriching Energy, which can be cool to Dunsparce and does draw your cards. It's not a bad card. It's like not super good. It's kind of meh. And then it's also a card that requires an attachment, right? So then you need to like
Yeah.
accelerate to get use out of it. But this list doesn't play any. A lot of lists runs Wondrous Pass, which is like fine. But also you want to play the new Telepath Psychic Energy, which helps you set up, which I've talked about some of the deck a bunch of the past actually.
Right.
But then no, you're not running a lot of psychics, so you can't Wondrous Patch. And then, or you can't do it as much, and then you now can't use Enriching Energy. It puts 4 Hildas, 3 Dawns, 3 Boss. And so, like, what happens if, you are a little behind? Essentially, your opponent's gonna be wiping out your Pokemon like every turn because you're not really getting many in the early turns when things like don't quite go your way, which will happen because your draw is stable to evolutions. I guess you got
Yeah.
Fezandipity EX, but that can only do so much. Not that they can't do a lot, they can, but I don't know. It just I can see it going wrong a lot. Waste. It's a pre-rotation list. No, it's not a pre. Oh, Twilight Lucky Helmet was in Twilight Masquerade. I guess I kind of knew that. Anyways, this list is running Lucky Helmet. That's kind of weird, but yeah. Would you agree with that analysis, or do you think I'm like just hating on Alakazam for no reason?
No, I think it's got its vulnerabilities for sure. It also it's a good single prize deck. It is a better single prize deck than we've had in a while, I think, too, right? And therefore
Um,
it gets a little overhyped for that,
yeah.
right? I mean, like Lost, what? I mean, since Lost Zone, have we had any really strong single prize? We haven't had any viable single prize decks
Yeah.
since Lost Zone, right?
I'd say like not. I mean, even Lost One's pretty toolboxy, a lot of multi-prizers, and
Right.
then I'd say like Gardevoir
The,
EX doesn't count. There was a Snorlax.
yeah, yeah, Black
Oh wait, that,
Snorlax.
that was the was that before or after Lost Zone? That might have been after, so maybe that's wrong.
I think we had that later. And Reggie's, was that the
Or
same
maybe
as
before, I
Lost
think.
Zone, or
That
it
was
was
I guess that was
before?
after, but
Again, but
same era.
yeah. So we haven't. So therefore, Alakazam, I think, is really the flag bearer for single prize decks, um, generally. So, but it's yeah, no, it's not great. So it's going to go on C tier though, because I think we agree it's better than the Honchkrow deck, right? In the
Yeah,
single as far as single prize decks go.
yeah,
So is it better than the Mewtwo deck, I guess, is the question. It's on C tier. It's definitely not B tier.
yeah. I think it's pretty close. I guess I mean I don't know how much experience do you have with Team Rocket's Mewtwo?
I haven't played that much. I played a lot more Alakazam, so
Yeah, me too. I haven't played that much Alakazam. I played some. I certainly have played against a lot more Alakazam, so I'm fine with I guess putting it above. Um,
okay.
I don't know if playing it more means we should put it higher or lower. We obviously know the deck better, but I think
Yeah.
it's fine. And I think Team Rocket's Mewtwo is like okay. I don't think it's an amazing deck. It does some really cool stuff, but it has issues as well.
Yeah, and honestly, these decks are pretty close. Alakazam, the Honchkrow, the Mewtwo. They're all similar power levels, I would think. So I think the distinction's fine. I think is not that big between those decks. So where we going next? Do we stay in with single prize decks, or you
Yeah,
want
I
to do
think
something else?
let's do. Are we gonna actually? I realized there's three. After I said you said there was one, and I said there was two.
Oh,
There's three, but I don't know. We're
oh yeah,
covering all of them, right? So I guess we'll
yes,
do Slowking. I think Slowking is bad. I guess I'll quickly mention there's a Metagross. Metagross isn't out yet. Will not be out yet. So, if you had like questions about that card's not out yet. Not that it's like huge for the deck. It's decent. But that card's not going to be out yet. That's in Chaos Rising. But anyway, so we have the Slowking deck where you toss a card or discard the top card of your deck. Presumably, you
yeah,
need to toss that card in the top of your deck to actually use it because
right,
otherwise you're not going to hit it right. It definitely can do some fun things. I mean, it can do some really fun things, right? But
yes.
usually it doesn't do much of anything, right?
No, I mean I've played it a little, not a lot. And I certainly I've played against it a few times too, more times against it than I played it. And yeah, I mean it just seems it's just too easy to miss. The list I'm looking at is relying on Wondrous Patch to get the energy attached. I guess you could play a second energy in Crispin. I'm just very suspect of Wondrous Patch as well. It's potentially good, but it goes to your bench still. So you need like, oh, okay, so they're playing Latias here, so they're sending up a basic. I guess to send that or the Megas Kangaskhan or something like that to the or the Pheasantipity, something like that. So, which is fine. It's a little weird to me that it's a stage one attacking deck and you're using Latias, but I get it with this because of the Wondrous Patch. So, but that's deck space and bench space you're using too, which I don't love. I do think it's just not too inconsistent, right? It's a lot of fun when it pops off, but I just don't think it happens often enough.
Yeah, and with Wondrous Patch, I think, we see cards like this in the past to be very powerful, but generally I think they've been very powerful on basic multi-prizers with these, Pokemon that can do big things in one turn as opposed to this Pokemon that I
Yeah,
guess can do big things, but in 2 turns. So it's, you can do some really fun things as we were saying, but the deck's just super inconsistent. And honestly, its power level, for the fact that it's so inconsistent, is kind of bad. I would definitely say this is the worst of the decks we looked at so far. I think it is the worst of the ones in the video. I'd put it in D tier. I mean, it's not F tier, but I'd put it in D tier. I don't think it's very I don't think it's very playable a lot of the time. Like you just will sit there and not like do anything. You need to you don't need like something crazy to happen to be able to play the game. But
right.
if your opponent actually sets up, it's gonna be pretty hard for if you're playing with this deck and your opponent sets up. I mean, if you also set up, I guess you can win, but you probably won't.
Yeah, look, it's a deck. Obviously, if you're like playing on live and you want to play it, go ahead. If you want to go to a local event with it, that's fine. Don't expect great things necessarily, but it's a deck. I just can't see bringing it to anything significant and with a reasonable expectation of any level of success. So I think
Yeah, like a major
let's
tournament.
yeah. So I think D tier, and I imagine it's going to be the bottom of D tier when we're done.
Yeah. Then we got the other single prize. Well, we have two more, but the one is
Yeah,
more. Someone's like, yeah, I'm playing my cool single prize deck. People like single prize decks. The one that people like, I guess, is Festival Lead with Diplin.
yeah,
Diplin is a card. I'm pretty sure they're like all running that. That's the wrong Diplin. Yeah, there we go. I got the right Diplin. This one is obviously tax choice. We got Festival Grounds in play, which is
yeah.
well, with the ability Festival Lead, which is the name of the deck. And the deck is pretty simple, I suppose. You attack, right? Wow, there's a lot of different applins in this. And then you could also do Seeking as well. But you just want to do big damage. And yeah, you're a decent deck at doing that. I suppose Grass Weakness is also okay to be hitting. Definitely not the worst. We'll talk about grass stacks. We talked about some, but grass
Yeah.
being weak to grass is a little scary. But I don't think it's as big of an issue as you do. But we'll get to that. But then ultimately, that can be good, but again, like Alakazam, I think it can kind of fizzle out, and its highs are a little lower as well.
Yeah, can you get the damage numbers you need? Like this list here is playing a black belt's training, which is good, but of course you're burning your supporter for turns. So one of the things I like about it, I'm a big fan of bug catching set. Just I think in a deck like this with lots of grass energy, the list doesn't play a ton of grass energy, but it's got a lot of grass Pokemon. You're gonna get good stuff consistently with bug catching set in a list like this. So I think it's a really nice item. It's fun to play. It's just, yeah, honestly, my experience with Festival Lead is it just misses too often, right? It's one of those things, if you set up and all of a sudden you get like multiple thwackies and you're just doing it whatever you want, but if you don't set up, you're just out of the game within a couple turns if you don't set up too.
Yeah, yeah. And things can go badly with Dragapult, right? Which is still very good and
Yes.
a legitimate problem. Also, I just realized Let's Look At isn't the right format, but that's fine. It's got a special red card, but who cares about that? So yeah, I'd say it's probably is it D tier or C tier? I'm not sure.
I'd say D tier. I think it's kind of on that fringe with this, partly again, things are moved down a little bit because we left A tier open, but I think it's kind of borderline C/D tier.
Yeah, well, you said D.
I think D because I think we're gonna have more decks to fill in C
Yeah.
tier than D tier. So I just try to get a little balance is my thought there.
Yeah. Then looking at the last single prize deck, this is one I made a video on recently, which is Crustle, and talking about it. And
One of
it's
my favorites.
yeah, everyone says that, no, so it walls, it's like the wall, pun
Yes.
I guess intended, or like not really, I don't know. But you're immune to damage from EXs and you do some damage. You do like okay damage. Actually, no, I guess you do bad damage, but you are single prize are immune to multi prizers. It's good.
Right.
Well, we talked about a bunch of single prize decks. Most of the decks are multi prizers. Most of them are running some single prizers, but like Solrock isn't really cutting through this. Drake is like the same thing for this, and they're 300 time. So you're gonna see cards like that. Something like I guess Honchkrow is really bad, or like Fight Ops
Yeah.
Festival is going to be bad. Alakazam you can stop, which is the most popular of these single prize decks by using Mist Energy, or like you can more or less stop it unless they enrich energy use. So definitely, my opinion, a power like a decently powerful deck. In Japan, it's been doing it all right. Paired with some other things, we can like make it a pretty simple deck as well if you want.
Right. I mean, the most popular form right now, pre-rotation, is just four Crustle, and that's it. Now we're losing Luxurious Cape, right? So therefore, that build is going to be a lot worse, I would think. But that's the simplest way to play it. I think you could still play it post-rotation with the four Crustle build, and then it really just depends. It's not a great deck. But what it does is by doing 120 damage, it can one-shot most of the things that can damage it, and and those cards don't because mostly what you're dealing with is you're dealing with pre-evolution of these rule box evolution cards. What you're dealing with most games, I think. And so those cards damage you, but they don't one-shot you. Whereas the Crustle can one-shot them. You have to get your three energies on, so that's a bit tricky. But because of the 150, it's a okay number. The 120, I do think is a solid number. Losing Cape though makes you a lot more vulnerable to things. So I think you're going to have to kind of have more of a box style deck with Crustle going forward. I'm seeing this one list that with also like the Cornerstone Mask Ogrepon and some different things and some Monkey Dories, which of course you can do that type of thing as well. So it's good. It's good if it's not respected, but it's not a great deck in and of itself, I guess is where I'm getting at.
Yeah, and I also forgot with Monkey Dory, well, you can stop the confusion from being put on you with Mist Energy. Well, one,
Yeah.
if you attach it after, you don't stop it. And two, they are, I guess, able to attack you. And three, they're able to use their ability. The ability is quite good here with and against the deck. So that is a little annoying because Dragapult's generally playing Monkey Dory. I don't think it's super good. That's not for today, but uh, you're gonna see Monkey Dory a bunch, and that could definitely cause some problems. I'd say this deck is C tier, definitely. Would you agree?
Yeah, I'm inclined to think it's bottom of C tier. What do you think?
I'd put it above Honchkrow personally.
Okay.
Yeah, I
I
don't think
think
I'm
it's
gonna.
just gonna Okay, then that's fine. We'll put it above 100. Like I said, it's going to depend what you're running into
Yeah,
um, at the time, right? It's very much just it's a counter card, and if you're countering the right things, you're great shape. But if you're running the wrong opponents matchups, you're going to lose.
yeah. Now we got all EXs from here on out, and I'll just go through the list here, I guess, starting with Martin's Grimmsnarl EX, pretty much doing the same stuff it was doing pre-rotation. There are some changes, of course, but it's pretty similar. And yeah,
Yeah.
where do you put this one?
Marnie's, and then what this with Frostless Monkey Dory. Obviously, you can get the energy on Monkey Dory. I think is it B tier? It's at least C tier, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's quite B
B.
tier. I'd probably put
It's
it top
top.
of C.
Yeah, I think right now because we have Alakazam, but I think it's probably you're going to get better results from the Marnie's Grimmsnarl than
Yeah,
the Alakazam deck.
yeah. Then we have it is weak to grass as well. This deck
Oh,
is
yeah, and we're going to be talking about grass decks more. So
yeah.
so yeah, that's right. Grass weakness is a big problem for it. So that might move it down. So if there's a lot of grass, you just have to move it down, possibly to the bottom of C or towards D, depending, because if you can't afford to get just blown up.
I guess, yeah. I think you're over exaggerating how bad it is. I mean, Dragapult's still like 25% of the metagame.
Yeah.
So even though if there's like a deck that's like a good portion of the rest of it, it's still not even like that high compared to what you're kind of expecting there. But anyways, so then we have Zororark EX as well. I think this deck it's actually one of the most played decks currently in in standard with the Ascended Heroes metagame pre-rotation because of, I guess, end Zekrom and like post-rotation or something like that. Ultimately, I
Hmm.
think the deck's okay. I'd say it's probably I'd put it just above Barney's. Personally, I think it's kind of similar.
Yeah, it's what Ends has. It has a great engine, right? Enzork is a good engine, but the attackers are just okay, right? That's the problem with it. So it's got that funny dynamic to it. So good engine keeps it relevant, not great. So you think it's what about where Marnie's is?
Yeah, I'd put it above it with the
Okay,
good engine with now a good attacker with the and Zekrom not a new card from Perfect Order but new from Ascended Heroes being a
right.
nice good powerful mini addition there. And I think that card like yes you can attack back to back but I think it's not a huge deal. You got I mean Packer EX is really good and I just think the card is good in general.
Yeah, I don't. It's going to be it's more consistent than a deck like Marnie's, so therefore it's better, right? Whether it's actually going to perform better is a question, but you're gonna set up and you're gonna play the game, which is always a good thing.
Yeah. So ultimately, we got that there. I think it's these decks are fine. Then we got a grass deck. I guess we'll probably talk about all three grass decks here together if you're fine with that.
Yeah.
Got oh, and I guess I didn't clarify. I don't know if I did with the what the one deck is, but we'll get to that in a second. We have all these play Team Dragapult EX. We have the first one with the Arboliva EX. So Uncommon Fossil, have you played this deck
I've played a yeah I've played Our Believe. I
with
think it's a lot
Ogrepon?
of fun. What was that?
With Ogrepon?
Um, yeah, yeah,
Okay,
I
good.
have done that. So
Um,
um,
and I'm just gonna quickly go through if you're good with that. It
yeah,
also
yeah.
runs
Go ahead. I'm trying to
Meganium
call. Yeah, go ahead.
with Force of Vitality there. And then you have the Mega Venusaur EX running presumably Meganium, maybe Mega Meganium. I don't know. Probably not. Mega Meganium is like not super good, though. Can be scary from time to time. And then with Ogerpon, they say Ogerpon, Mega Venusaur, Meganium,
Yeah,
and then the stadium. Then we have Ogerpon Box, which is a deck containing, it's containing the Ogerpon, the grass one, as like the engine there. And then on top of that, it's also going to
yeah.
be playing or containing the water one, probably Liz Clefairy EX, almost definitely, and also Mega Kangaskhan EX is like a meaningful attacker there, I guess. I haven't really messed with this deck too much. This is not the same as the Mega Kangaskhan deck, but definitely an interesting one as well.
Yeah, I mean the ochre. Yeah, the ochre pond's just really good, right? It's very versatile, and we have enough. This is part my concern about grass weakness is just while there's not going to be one grass deck that's a lot collectively. What if you get like 15% or more of the decks being these some ogre pond style deck, right? That becomes a problem if you're grass weak.
Yeah. Um, and we see Ogerpon, then we do see also like yes, Crustle, Festival Lead, Rockets, White Ops are also all grass, so
Yeah.
I don't know though. I think it's with these decks, they're kind of meh. Honestly, okay, so what are your experiences playing Arboliva with Ogerpon?
I think look, first off, Our Believe is just super fun for me, just hitting those damage counters around. Once you put the Meganium in, you're making things less consistent, right? You're relying on a stage two. But once you get Meganium, now your Ogerpon becomes besides a bit of an engine. It's not a great engine, but as long as you're playing enough energies, you're gonna get going there. Um, you're going to start to do big damage off the Ogerpon, which is an engine piece, so that's really good there. And then you have the Arboliva, I would say, as a threat, right? You can win. You have two ways to win the games, right? With the Arboliva, smack in the bench. You can just smack into the active with the Ogerpon. So it can work out pretty well, I think.
I guess I feel like one of my big issues with this is that at least in my experience, like, what's Arboliva good at? Because like Overfront does big damage, and they can like do big damage. It can do huge damage or just like decent damage, depending on the situation. But with Arboliva, I don't know. Like I feel like you want to knock out two Pokemon. I don't know if I imagine that's kind of the idea there. But
Hmm.
with that card, you just probably um probably don't knock out two Pokemon, because they both need to be below 60. There's Badoo as well. Badoo does help with that, but other than that, it feels not super good.
Yeah. Now is Halucha sticking around, by
Now,
the way?
Holo's just not.
Okay, I couldn't remember on that. So, and whether you want to play that, but what it does is if you go first and then in your rare candy, there are games you win by just you knock out two your base opponents playing a stage two deck, and you just knock out two basics on your second turn, and they're basically out of the game from the beginning. I've had a number of games go that way, right? And your opponent's really scrambling to get together, and I'm just while I'm doing that, I'm getting my Ogre Pond like powered up too. So that happens. And and you have the threat of big damage from your Ogre Pond as well. So I think and you also I believe you can finish things off on the bench, right? You can finish off of the rule box Pokemon too. So there's times that you do that as well, or you're setting something up to one shot, the following turn, especially up against megas, right? Because if you're up against mega Pokemon to get two megas knocked out, you win the game. So you can afford a two shot over the course of the game if it's a mega deck. So that's a factor too.
Yeah, yeah. I think it can do some cool stuff. I don't know. I'm just not a believer in it. Um, it's I don't know. It just feels kind of meh. I think it's a deck that's like one of those hot decks, which we actually will talk about one of those decks in just a moment here.
Yeah.
That is like really cool. It's fun. I'm not gonna sit here and deny that, but I don't know. So where do you want to put it?
I mean, no, it's probably like low end of C tier.
Okay.
You think,
Yeah.
or you think it's D tier?
No, I'm okay with it in like low end C tier. Where do you put it?
Uh, I'd say put it above Crustle. Is what I'm thinking.
Okay, yeah, I'm fine with that, I suppose. I do think Crustle is probably better. Crustle's like not very fun. I just say it kind of gets knocked down. I mean, in terms of play, it'll get knocked down for that reason, right?
Yeah, people won't bring it as much. You're gonna have a lot more fun with our believer than you're gonna have with Crystal. As long as you set up, of course,
Yeah.
which is always true.
Um,
Uh,
but then with Mega Venusaur, I think Mega Venusaur is like worse. Um, because I don't know, or I don't know if it's worse, but I just don't think it's like super good. Ultimately, Mega Venusaur itself is like super. It's tanky. It's cool. I guess it's probably similar to Arboliva. I'd probably put it right next to it, right below it, maybe. But I could see it above it. Honestly, it might be better, but because I don't think Arboliva is very good.
well, what the one thing the Mega yeah
Venusaur
yeah Venusaur has going for it is I'm not sure there's much that's going to be able to one shot it. Right now, Goldango is a threat, obviously, and I don't know that say Raging Bolt can it scale enough to get to knock out to one shot it. I don't
probably
know that it
not. No, I don't. I mean like theoretically, but realistically, no.
right, and there aren't really fire decks, right? We don't have any fire decks here on our tier list, so now you're survive. Now you're gonna they're having to multi shot you. You have the Waller's Compassion, in which case they're like, yes, you have to reset up again, but now it's like four shotting you, right? So but you so what mid? So you're thinking mid C tier, right? Somewhere.
Yeah, I'd put it above the Arboliva deck there, just right above it
Okay.
personally.
I mean, I think it might be better than that, but time will tell. I'm not. We'll see.
Yeah. Then we got. I could put it like a little higher if you want, actually.
Okay. I mean, the difficulty is the energies, right? And you have to get your stage two set up for the ability to multiply the energies. Otherwise, it's not working. So it's going to be inconsistent.
Yeah.
But is it going to be better than? Now let's keep it where it is. In some ways, the Mewtwo is going to set up better, right? Because of the trainer package, right?
Yeah.
So okay.
And then regarding, I guess like this Ogerpon box deck or whatever, you haven't really played this deck, right?
No, I have not played this. So have you played it at all?
I've definitely played some Ogerpon Lilies. I don't know, I played some stuff kind of like this. I mean, you played the Ogerpon, like the regular Ogerpon box deck, right?
Oh, yes, I've done that. Yes.
So that's like cool, I guess. And yeah, that's That
Well,
you know,
so
it's not the same, but it has the water one, which is very good.
now are you talking the Ogerpon with Meganium or Ogerpon without Meganium
Well,
or
here
either?
or when I
Yeah,
asked about
with
this is
this
with
right now for
no, this is
Ogerpon.
not with Meganium.
Okay.
I'd say it plays similarly to Kangaskhan. Yeah.
Y- Yeah, and like the list I'm looking at is, and obviously it does have Mega Kangaskhan. It can be that style of big basic deck where the Ogerpon is kind of your engine, right? Outside of, well, you have the Kangaskhan, you have the Ogerpon, you have the Pheasantipity, and you have the Meowth EX, right? So those are your engine pieces in a big box, in a big basic deck.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think it's kind of whatever. I don't have too much to say about this deck, to be honest. Yeah, I find these decks kind of boring, to be honest. That's not really good reason, but that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's tricky too because it can go a lot of different directions, right? It's we're getting into box style decks. They're kind of mixing up. So we want to make it the top of these grass decks then that we just did.
Just- Wait, what? I don't know, and I'd say it's the bottom.
You think okay? You want to put it above Crustle? You think it's lower than
I
that?
think Crystal's good. I think you think Crystal. I think you're scared Crystal's good.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I'm afraid I'm going to keep playing Crustle for the next year. That's what I'm afraid of, and that's I don't want to be in that world, but that might be what I do because I do like walling decks like Crustle, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm
so
top
you want to
10
put
on our list right now. Um,
I know. So, but it's easy to play, and there's times
yeah,
in the day when I just want something easy to play too. But so you want to put the Ogrepon above the Honchkrow deck?
yeah, I think. I don't know. I mean, I think it's kind of splitting hairs. Um,
Okay.
yeah. Honestly, putting all the grass decks next to each other looks kind of fun, except for poor old Festival Lead, which is definitely that. Anyways, then we
Yeah.
got a Grass Weak deck, which is Cynthia's Garchomp EX or Cynthia's Garchomp. I think this
Yeah.
deck is good, but you think it's bad. So, well, I don't know. I guess you think it's bad because of the weakness. Is that like the thing?
I think the weakness is a big problem with it. I haven't really played much Cynthia's too, so that's part of my problem. Um, yeah, well, it's what does two, so it's relying on premium power pro to get the damage level that you need, which is the same thing with Mega Lucario. But I think Mega Lucario is good because it sets up easier. It's a stage one. It's one energy here. With the first attack, you're not doing much damage, right? Even with the premium power pro, you're not one shotting any rule box
Yeah.
Pokemon.
Yeah, unless you got weakness. I mean, you could as well. Oh, no, you could
Yeah,
because you have the Rosary as well, right? So, um,
yeah.
I feel like it's decent. Honestly, like the deck is, I feel like it's pretty similar to Mega Lucario EX. My experience, though, I don't know, it's a little sketchy. It's a stage two, but it is a two prizer as well. I definitely put it in C tier, but I'd put it near the higher end of C tier. In terms of weakness, it's certainly not good to play against grass decks. It's pretty bad, but I mean, so is
Hmm.
the, same with darkness decks, right?
Yeah. So you want to put it? Is it going ahead of Alakazam then? It's
Uh,
not going ahead of like
yeah,
Marnie's Grimmsnarl, right?
I guess not.
I mean, because
So,
Marnie's Grimmsnarl with its energy acceleration, it sets up reasonably well, I think.
yeah, I just
Better
don't
than
think its upside is super good. I don't know. I've never been a huge fan of Marnie's though. But yeah,
okay,
I'd say above Alexam, fine.
okay,
Then we got, I guess we'll talk about Mega Starmie now. Mega Starmie EX is a deck that was doing amazing, um, when it came out, and it was definitely overplayed. It looked a little sketchy. Neither
yeah,
of us were fully sold, but it was doing amazing. It was doing better than Dragapult. It's not now. It's like essentially not seeing any play. I don't
no,
think it's horrendous, but it's paired with Frostlass. It's kind of like doing the Barney's thing with, Frostlass, Mikidori, Mega Frostlass as well. Mega Frostlass is a big part of it because they're two stage one water energy attacking Pokemon, which is like pretty decent. So I feel like, and what it does is 20 snipe, 50, or sorry, 120 active, 50 snipe, or 210 for 3 colorless, hitting through effects. So I guess that's good against Crustle there. But ultimately, I feel like the deck is decent. I mean, not like amazing decent, but I feel like it could be C tier as opposed to like an auto D tier. I don't think it's B tier. I don't think it's there, but I think it has something there that people are overhyped on and now are underhyped on.
yeah. I mean, because what happens with the city leagues, these are they're important events, but they're still smaller local events too, where people get to play out the new cards. So they're gonna, and this is the only new deck that we're talking about. So, which considering rotations happening, only one new deck isn't a lot, but that's where we're at here. The problem is it's three prizes and the damage numbers aren't impressive, right? So that's the concern with it. But yeah, which is why it can't be B tier, but it's definitely not D tier. So it's going somewhere in C tier. Um, but it'll set up. It'll be consistent, right? It's a stage one. You can attack for one energy is one of your options, so it's gonna work. So it's gonna go what C tier? It's above the grass decks, I would think, anyway.
I'd put it between Venusaur and Mewtwo, probably.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, and then we got two more decks here. These two I always kind of group together in my mind. We got Mega Kangaskhan and Mega Absol. Mega Kangaskhan EX is going to be obviously using Mega Kangaskhan EX. It's the attacking Pokemon here, up there, but you're flipping stuff, whatever. But then you also
Yep.
have the Boufflant there to take less damage here, like Tanky, things like that. Then with the, I guess I'll mention Penny's rotating, specifically for, same thing with Team Toronto, so we didn't talk about that. The teams are rotating, but
Mm,
with
yeah.
the Absol deck, this actually won the tournament, right?
Yeah, the big
Yeah.
Japanese championships league. Yeah, it was a
Um,
Mega Absol box deck.
yeah, I would say the deck was, I think just one person played it, not mistaken, which I am, like, yeah, so just one person, or in the top 16 or whatever, played it. So in the top 32, minus two decks, so one.
Right. Yeah, so it's not. It's a surprise, and I think it kind of caught people off guard. I think, which meant it was a good choice. It probably is not is it's not the best deck in format. Certainly, it's not gonna. We think it's Dragapult. Dragapult certainly didn't win it because of people prepping to deal with Dragapult, but people weren't prepared for Mega Absol box deck. They'll be more prepared for it. It's got a lot going on for it though. You have a lot of options, which is fun. A big basic deck with options. Are you going to set up well enough? That's the question. With big basic decks, you're playing the Latias EX, so you can therefore ideally should be taking advantage of the Mega Kangaskhan's draw every turn. So and then you have your different attacking options for the matchup. So I think that's a relatively solid deck, for sure. And then the Mega Kangaskhan deck is more the one we're talking about is I think is with Boufflant more defensive. In some ways, a deck that I might be more drawn towards, but I think that Mega Absol deck is probably the better deck. That's the more offensive deck of the two.
Yeah, so where do you put these on the tier list?
Um, wow. I mean, they're going to be C tier. I don't think they. I think these are high C tier. What do
Yeah,
you think?
I don't know. I mean,
You,
you like these styles of decks more than I do. Um, with like
I
big
mean, they're at least.
basics, with some simplicity, some definitely complexity, but like in terms of drawn simplicity there, I would
Yeah.
say, as opposed to like, or not a true drawn. So ultimately, I don't know. I'd say
I mean, I
honestly,
think
they
they're at least.
remind me a lot of Ogerpon. I mean, the one is kind of an Ogerpon deck. I don't think the deck's super good. I don't think Mega Absol EX is super good. I think it can do some decent stuff, but I think it's a pretty. I mean, it's kind of hard to play as well. It's definitely a card that I
It
just get
is.
hit by, and people just like discard something from a hand, and it like wow, that was like not the card to discard there. Um, for them, like it was not the right play. Sometimes they certainly make the right play, but it's difficult to know.
Yes.
Could be powerful, but it is 300 on a basic three prizer as well. There's the weakness issue. It is a toolbox deck, so the weakness isn't a huge issue there. But ultimately, I would say that this is I don't know. I'd say it's
So I think it's got to be mid C. I don't think it should be below mid C tier.
okay. Yes.
I mean, I do think the Mega Absol deck is a complicated deck. Both it's got a lot of attacking options and what you do with it. I think the Mega Kangaskhan is the more defensive deck. It's also the more straight, simple deck, more straightforward deck, right? You're just hoping you kind of do damage and don't get knocked out quickly. So
Yeah.
they're play the way they're going to play is going to be different, but I don't know the results will vary much. So, um, but you want to what? You think it's low C tier?
Yeah, but I don't know. This is more your style deck, so I'll you can. I've definitely put a lot of these on the list. So, but where do you put them?
Yeah, I guess as I'm looking at, I'll see like I like the Arboliva deck as well. So I'm going to put it below Arboliva because I'm going to have. I think I'll. How about that?
Okay, both of them.
Yeah, put them
You'll
both
put
there.
which one?
I'm going to put Mega Absol higher because I
Okay.
think with skilled play, you should get better results with that deck.
Yeah, that's definitely true. With Mega Hascon, there's not, you could definitely, I guess, like make some skill plays. There's some plays that are legitimately not with just flipping coins, right? That's literally like the opposite of, it's not like
Yes.
it's like I mean, Mega Hascon is an interesting card with some really cool. Like, it does a lot of things, right? It does a lot of things. That's what makes it interesting. But I don't like the coin flip aspect. But maybe it's just because I'm bad at the game. Who knows? But anyways, here is our tier list with the one deck in S tier of Dragapult, nothing in A, which feels very fair, and then with Mega Lucario and Raging Bull in B. I will say, the top three decks in C tier are all. I feel like they feel decent. To me, those stand out. I don't know if
Yeah.
you'd agree with that.
Yeah, I would. I mean, in a sense, they could slide up to B tier. I don't think that would be wrong here. Um, but I don't want to slide all the other decks down a tier. So that's why
Yeah.
I think we're just gonna have a really big C tier here today.
Yeah, and the top three decks all are weak to essentially Psychic, and the
Yeah.
next three are all weak to Grass there. So that's interesting as well, with those being two good weaknesses to hit, which is actually what the Team Rockets deck hits. It hits those two, which is kind of cool. But ultimately, I am excited for the format. I do think Dragon Ball will be kind of maybe problematic, but I do think I will enjoy it. I hope other people enjoy it as well. But make sure you check out our content on YouTube and obviously the other podcast stuff here. Again, on YouTube or not on YouTube, but if you are, or even if you're not on YouTube, I guess make sure you subscribe and leave comments on YouTube. Again, on YouTube there, because if you leave it somewhere else, we unfortunately cannot really see it very easily. Then make sure you like and subscribe, hit the bell, and obviously check us out on other platforms if that's more convenient for you. But we hope you enjoyed, and as always, we're excited to see you in the next episode.
Take care.